Okay.
It's interesting to complain and be like, did they really just make this movie in this day and age where the writing is so horrible? Hi guys, it's Nadia and Jake, and we are back, and today we're going to be talking about
Orphan
the
and
Orphan.
Orphan First Kill.
Yes.
The Orphan series.
So Orphan First Kill actually came out in August. However, that's a prequel to the original Orphan film, which came out in 2009.
Yep.
And we have a lot of thoughts.
I'd say Orphan First Kill makes the original Orphan look like The Godfather. And I didn't like Orphan that much. So that gives you an idea of the quality of Orphan First Kill. I think there is a campiness to it that I think some people have found fun because it is pretty campy, but also directed in a horrible style that I hate and was kind of boring for half of it. Mm-hmm. So, but that's Orphan First Kill. The original Orphan is kind of a very simple story. The classic movie about creepy children, you know, like The Omen or whatever. There's plenty in that genre. Cliche in a way, but I think that the reason why Orphan works, and I think it has a pretty good fan base, is it's because there's some really good acting in it, and it has a nice twist that's done pretty well. And there's some genuinely unsettling moments in the movie. I would say it's a little too slow, and there's some like just bad scenes that are just cliches, and just like most of the movie I was like just suffering through. This is the original Orphan. And then it started to pick up like halfway through, and I'm like, okay, there's finally some stuff happening and we're a little more interesting. But for most of it's just like the boring looking in the mirror and then something's behind you, you know, just that kind of stuff. What did you think of the original Orphan?
I want to talk about both of them in tandem because I do feel like there's a little bit of togetherness in it in a very horrible way, and I'll get into that. So the original Orphan, I thought was slow in the beginning as well, although I see why it was slow because you don't really understand what's going to happen with the orphan. Is the orphan the one harming? Or is the orphan the one who's going to be harmed? And in the beginning, she establishes herself as an innocent child, weird, but innocent. You think that something is going to maybe trigger her into being like evil. Maybe she's demonic or something. I didn't watch the trailer, by the way. I want to preface that. So maybe in the trailer it's more obvious that she's the evil one. I see what they're going with it. So what if we like gave her someone, we looked at her original story, and we gave her someone that she could actually level with in the same manipulative way.
I think that they were looking at Orphan First Kill as more, what if we make her more of a sympathetic character and kind of show her origin story for turning her into being really evil? Because I'd say that in Orphan First Kill, it starts out, she's generally...
Well, I was going to talk about that too, but that's more spoiler, right? Because we can't really talk about...
Like... Yeah, we can get in. Yeah, we can talk about that later. But I just wanted to... I feel like it's less about having someone to match her up with, but more of a sympathetic look.
She starts out pretty evil, even in the prequel. So
but she's escaping people. So I don't know. We can talk about that later. But I will say I do think Orphan 2009 is a better movie.
Yeah. But
Orphan, what is it even called? Orphan First Kill is way more interesting.
Are you kidding me? It's interesting at how bad it is. Okay. It's interesting to complain and be like, did they really just make this movie in this day and age where the writing is so horrible, the literally everything does not make sense, everything is just convenient writing, and I can go on and on and on about that.
Yes, that's all. That's an element of what makes it interesting is how it doesn't
work. It's like
a
slapstick.
Yeah, but that's what's interesting is because there's so much that doesn't work, and you kind of have to question, like, what are they trying to do and say here? Because there's some clear messages, some very on-the-nose messages in this movie that's like, we're kind of turning the Orphan story on its head. It's not a typical just redo of Orphan. You know, you think it's going to be the exact same thing. That's what's boring. But then it gets really funny and fun.
So it's boring.
I was laughing half the movie because it doesn't work as a horror movie. It's a great comedy.
But I don't think it's intended to be that way.
I don't think it is. But
so it's good?
Interesting from that lens. And I think it's more interesting to talk about because there's some interesting stuff they're trying to inject in it that doesn't work and some unintentional hilarity. So I'm a huge, I don't know. I'm kind of on the Orphan First Kill train.
So you're saying that it's good because it's so bad.
Unintentionally. I'd say, yeah. I mean, I don't know how much was intentional.
What would you rate it?
I don't know how much was intentional for Orphan First Kill if they were like, well, we have a kind of ridiculous premise here. Let's just go all out on the, like, just make this as goofy as possible. And there are some really, there's some breaks in logic where it's like once that break in logic happens and you remember the part in the movie, you start watching it differently and going, I'm detached from this movie, but watching it from like a critical lens that's more fun. Orphan is just kind of an okay, kind of bland horror movie that has some good moments near the end, but is ultimately extremely forgettable. Mm-hmm. Orphan First Kill is a movie that is so weirdly bad, but not only in the writing but in the way it's made, because they're using the same actress who plays Orphan, but she's in her 20s now, so there's a lot of weird camera shots and kind of stuff they had to work around to make her seem like a kid, which doesn't always work. So it's like a lot of times you're watching the scene where this like 25-year-old woman or whatever is like
playing a 9-year-old kind of thing, and it's like, oh yes, you can definitely tell you were not that little girl. Like, they should have definitely used some CGI.
It's honestly, if the first half of the movie was as stupidly entertaining as the second half of the movie, I would recommend this to a lot of people to watch as like a bad movie that's fun to watch.
Yes. Okay. If I watched it from that lens of like, oh, this is supposed to be funny, it's a slapstick type of horror, yes, then it's funny, it's recommended. But if I were to watch it from, hey, I want to watch something horror and scary, let's watch this film, then you're going to be immensely disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, in that sense, I would give the original Orphan a 4 or 5.
And then
this one, I mean, it's hard because I enjoyed it almost more in a way, but not in a way where it's like I can really credit the filmmakers. Right. So, I mean, I would probably give it a 5.
Wow. Okay. I would give the original film a 5. And I would give this prequel a 2.
Okay, so from like an objective view, like, yeah, I'd give it like a 2 or something because it is bad. But from an enjoyment perspective, I'd give it like a 5.
I give it a 2 because it was so annoying to watch. Can we get into spoiler section? Because I would love to talk about
since it seems like we don't have much to say about the original Orphan, it's fine.
I do want to say something.
We'll talk about so spoilers for both movies. I think us talking about them isn't going to really ruin if you want to watch Orphan First Kill later, because there's some funny moments. You can check it out. It's streaming. So let's talk about it. What was so funny and entertaining to you about Orphan First Kill, and why was it so bad?
Well, I want to talk about both movies as a whole.
Yeah. Go.
Okay. So, I'm going to talk about the original Orphan first. So, the original Orphan, the premise is basically a 30-something-year-old woman who is pretending to be a child.
Because she has a certain, genetic disorder or something.
Yeah. Soon things begin to unravel. The mom is the one who really realizes that this girl is not normal, tries to kill her son and her daughter, tries to seduce the dad.
Yeah, so she's basically trying to destroy the mom's life because the mom has a sense about the girl, like there's something not right here. Just an inherent sense as like a mother. Like she can just tell like there's something off. She's kind of connecting the clues, and also her marriage is not very great. So the dad is like clueless, and the little girl, the orphan, is able to basically manipulate everyone in the family.
I do want to say that they had a stillbirth, so they're grieving right now.
It's a very serious in tone, little too like it's an incredibly serious movie that takes. I think it honestly takes itself way too seriously, which is why I think I like the prequel a little better, because it doesn't take itself as seriously.
Well, I disagree. I think that it's supposed to take itself seriously because, first of all, it's supposed to be a horror film. Second of all,
horror films don't have to take itself seriously.
Well, this one I felt like it would, because the mom and the dad all suffered this big loss. She delivered a baby that was not alive, and so they're grieving. They had all these plans and everything else, so they adopted this person thinking that she would be a new part of the family. They could help someone out, and all she ended up doing was being psychopath, actually hurting her other children who were otherwise healthy. So anyway, like I definitely felt that. I felt like the acting was great. I do feel like the story was so-so, but I do feel like it ends up coming together. I especially love the ending because, she dies. She tries to manipulate her mom when they're fighting at the end, saying, "Mommy, save me," because she falls into this frozen lake. And then the mom just basically says something like, "I'm not your mom."
Yeah,
and then
kicks her in the face.
And kicks her and her neck breaks. And then she just dies. And I thought that was the perfect ending.
But that's what I mean. Like, you go from this very serious story to an ending where you have a grown woman who looks like a child chasing around her mom with a knife. It's so, in the ending with her, like, "I'm not your mom," like kicking her in the face.
But I felt like it was so deserved because
it was, but like it's a good build up because we feel that kind of catharsis where it's like, yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Well, the original film, though, I felt like was completely different. You were right when what you were saying earlier, that the first film does explain a lot of why Esther, by the way her name is, or she goes by, has that cunning, manipulative attitude to the extent that she does in the second original film. However, I do feel like you're right that they were trying to make it sympathetic. For me, it didn't work. She goes to her art instructor's house and art therapist's house, and she kills her art therapist in a brutal fashion. She steals a girl's identity who's been missing since she was a child, named Esther, which is her name from the first and the second film. And she takes advantage of this couple just like she does in the original film. Now, the difference is that the mom in this original film is very manipulative.
All right, let's hold off there for a second because the first half of Orphan First Kill is extremely basic. We're just seeing like an origin story. We think she's falling into the hands of this couple, this family who has had a missing child, and she's impersonating their missing child who's been gone for like 4 years.
Yeah.
And it's already extremely odd because the mother is not very affectionate towards the daughter, and the brother, who's a little older, is outright mean. And just like, "I don't even want to talk to you." His sister, who's been missing.
I told you.
Yeah. So you could tell, like, oh, what if the brother actually killed the missing daughter and everything? I'm like, hey, I was like, they won't do that. Like, this movie's too boring for that.
Well, because he didn't even give her a hug when she met her at the airport.
Yeah. So they set that up. But for the first half of the movie, it's so boring. And I got to say, like, the prequel, I don't know, like, I thought the directing was really, like, just, like, bad and kind of, like, it had this, like, glossy look that was sort of like Harry Potter 6 or whatever, where it's, like, filmy look, but, like, it was just shot in a very clumsy way where none of the shots looked very good, or it was all also sort of framed around trying to make this like forced perspective so that for the exterior shots, it'd always be the back of the orphan as a little girl. And then you'd have close-ups of her as like...
I honestly think they should have just recasted her.
I
hate to say that, but like I do, because I feel like they were trying to do this. I don't think it was clumsy on purpose. I think honestly it just looked bad because they were trying to use camera technique and not CGI in order to make a 20-something-year-old woman look like she was like 10 years old, 9 years old, which obviously is difficult in itself. And I know that we're in this phase where we don't really want CGI a lot of times, but I think this is an exception. This is the case where they should have used CGI. I also feel like, in contradiction to not using CGI for her age and for her as an actress to play someone significantly younger, I do feel like there are some scenes in the whole movie where, for example, when the house is on fire, then it's like all CGI. It's so fake. It looks so bad. And then I'm like...
It's very cheap. It's very
cheap. And it's like, you don't want to use CGI for her, for this artistic thing, yet you're like, she's walking down the house in this whole like completely CGI filled, fake looking fire. She doesn't have a burn scratch in it. She's even like wiping off the blood off her face. Anyway, it was just like a poor decision on a creative part. And I also feel like a lot of the dialogue in itself was really, really poorly done.
Yes, it was. All right, so it looked like shit. The dialogue was garbage. The acting was honestly not that great. But it was funny because
unintentionally.
So Julia Stiles plays the mom, and the shift in the movie where it all comes revealed about what actually happened. And it's funny because you were hiding your eyes because you thought there was going to be a jump scare. Where following this detective is like, he steals some fingerprints from the orphan to try to, because he has a hunch, he's the detective. He has a hunch, and the orphan doesn't want him to find out her actual identity. So she goes to his house, she like stabs him, and he's on the floor. And then and you're like not even looking at him. And then out of nowhere, he gets shot like 5 times. And Julia Stiles, the mom, comes in and is just like shooting him repeatedly. And I'm like, honey, you gotta watch this. I have no idea what's going on. In like this villain speech, Julia Stiles, she's like, the mask is off. She's just like, well, what actually happened is that my son accidentally killed my daughter in an accident, and we covered it up because I didn't want to ruin my family.
I thought it was,
But the husband knows nothing about this.
Okay, I just have to talk about this. You have to let me talk about this part because it is the most frustrating freaking thing in the world. This is like literally why it's like a 2, maybe it's a 0 at this point in my mind, because the thing is, why in the world does it make sense for you, a cunning woman who is apparently really good at being deceiving, and you can kill off this detective and you're burying his body and you're so confident that no one will touch you, but then you're so stupid to literally confess to whom you know is a psychopath, and she tells her, Julia's character, like, hey, I'm a 30-year-old woman pretending to be a child. She's like, that is messed up. By the way, my son killed my daughter, and I'm going to confess to you, a psychopath, about what my son did so that you have something over me too, like I have something over you. Okay. So that so the movie has a motivation so that like we can make sure that there is equally something to lose on both sides. It's like there was no other way you could have freaking done that, you freaking writers. You could have not like gone and like had her talk to her son, and then this psychopath child who's an adult is actually listening to her instead or something like that. It was just so sloppily done.
Hold on. All right. Let's talk about Julia Stiles' character.
I like Julia Stiles usually.
Let's try to make sense of this because I want to see it from the writer's perspective. Okay, so her character, she's a mom. Her older son kills in an accident, which was probably malicious, her younger daughter. So she fakes that her daughter's kidnapped in order to preserve the happiness of her family, I guess, because she didn't want her son to get in trouble or whatever, even though
she didn't want like her marriage to.
And her marriage to suffer. But of course, her husband, who seems like a nice guy, but hopelessly stupid, is obviously very upset about it. He's a painter. He does art and everything. And he can't really work. He's been depressed because his daughter has been kidnapped. And of course, all of a sudden, this girl comes back into their lives. And Julia Stiles' character knows, like, this is not my daughter. My daughter is dead. We buried her, So does the son. So that's where it all fits in. But then, for some reason, she reveals to this woman who she knows is this malicious 30-year-old woman, hey, this is what happened. This is everything that happened. I still want you to be in our family because it makes my husband happy to have his daughter back. And I'm going to tell you about my plan. Why, like you said, there's no reason why she had to tell the orphan her plan. It just gives her unneeded leverage over her, because then the orphan could talk about, well, what she did.
2 words.
So it makes no sense. And then on top of this, her plan is, well, we're going to keep you in the family because it makes my husband happy. But then like 2 nights later, she's like, we need to kill you. And it's like, that's going to make your husband happy? Like, you get your I feel like it'd be better to be like, this person is a fraud. They're actually 30 years old. We can prove it. instead of being like, hey, our daughter came back. Oh, she killed herself.
Well, that's what I mean.
Like that's your, like, how does this make sense in her mind? It's so illogical. It makes no sense. And then Julia Stiles is like, she clearly, like, there's no way to play this character because the logical inconsistencies are so huge. There's no way to do it, that she just camps it up and just over the top, just like, I'm going to kill you, you little, you know, just like calling her names. And then there's this weird thing, like dynamic between the girl, the orphan, is like in love with the dad, and like Julia Stiles is
she's
like,
in love with all dads in all
like,
movies.
Julia Stiles is like, oh, you want him? Like, you'll never get him. You're a freak. And then,
I'm going to go and then have some intercourse with my husband that you won't get to have, basically. It's like so sick.
And I feel like it's an interesting thing where there's like a commentary about how like clearly the orphan has a real disease, you know, that people have. And there's kind of like this sense of like the first movie was like exploitative of this kind of person of who won't age in a way that most people do. And it's kind of sad. And we start to feel for the orphan character who is like being manipulated by these horrible people and taunted for her disability. So that's very interesting perspective. And then there's a very, very on-the-nose confrontation between the son and orphan. At one point is like, I know who you actually are. Like, I'm the boss here. And then she slaps him and then slaps him again. And he's like, this is the United States. Like, you're an immigrant. And like, the people who matter are me. Like, no one's going to believe you.
I was so happy when he passed away. Like,
hold on. But the point is, like, it's so on the nose, like the xenophobic racist characters who it's very on the nose social commentary, which was delivered very bluntly, that I just had to laugh because it's like, there are a lot of movies that will make this kind of commentary, but I've never seen it just like, well, I have seen it, but like I've never seen it this like on the nose, just like out of nowhere. Like, really, you're trying to make an important message in this movie that's total like trash fire.
Honestly, the only thing I liked about it was when everyone died. That's what I liked about it. And also another thing I liked about it is that Esther also dies in the second film. So essentially, everyone eventually dies from the first film.
Yeah.
And that was really great because I really wish I could kill the movie.
The climax of the movie where the house is on fire, like you said, the CGI is ridiculously bad. The fire effects is like so bad. And then they're climbing on the roof. Julia Stiles is trying to kill the orphan Esther. And they're on the roof, and at some point they're both hanging from the ledge, and it looked like a Wes Anderson movie almost because it was so like artificial looking. It's like they're like so perfectly hanging there, and then the dad comes up and has to decide who to save, and we're like, I'm thinking
Julia
like
Stiles dies though. She doesn't.
No,
he doesn't have to decide.
No, I know. That's what I was gonna say is that we think he's going to have to choose, and that'll be interesting. Like he's going to choose the orphan, you know.
Yeah.
But he ends up not even have to choose, which is like kind of a weird cop out. It's like, why did the movie have to do that anyways? And then Julia Stiles just falls and dies, and then he saves Esther, and then Esther, like he's like holding her, and then her like false teeth come out, and then she's like, I'm actually...
Talk about the way her false teeth come out. You can't skip over that.
How do they come out?
So Julia Stiles, right before she dies, she goes, Esther is a 30-year-old woman pretending to be our child. He goes, what? He saves Esther, and then he just like hugs. For some reason, he knows to go like this to the teeth. I don't know how he can even see in the dark. And then he just goes like this, so the teeth just start to come out. And he goes, I did this for you. That's what she says.
And she's like, we can run away together.
Yeah, and then...
his whole family has been murdered. His entire life upended. The woman he thinks is his daughter is not actually his daughter. It is actually some like Russian, serial killer. And she decides in this moment, on the top of their burning house, to say, run away with me. And then he's just like, what? No. And then he falls and dies, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
It was so funny.
And she walks. She goes back to her.
She calmly packs her stuff. Changes her clothes, gets the blood
while
off
there's
clothes.
fire
While there's
in the
fire
bedroom.
burning up. Literally, and it's not even like a small area, like where it's starting to burn. On every wall, huge flames, and she's just standing there, just like packing
taking off the blood,
slowly walking down the
necklace.
Stairs as everything's on fire. Nothing's falling or anything. It's just like the fake CGI flames.
And then when she goes out, there's already fire ambulance and everything there, and then she just goes out casually and just goes,
I'm ready for the next movie.
Ready for the next one. And then it's just so bad. I mean, honestly, I don't even know what to talk about in the original because, like you said, the original looks like is like a Godfather compared to. I will say for the original film because I do feel like it's a lot more believable. I hated the mother-in-law in the original film because I felt like she was not listening to the mom. Everyone was gaslighting the mom. And it made the mom really sympathetic, and I was very happy that when the dad died, as bad as it sounds, because he like obviously doesn't trust his wife. And he was just like picking on her. I felt
but he was a bad character in a believable way where it's like, yeah, there are people who are just so selfish and who's like, and it like his backstory made sense where he cheated on her and had all this resentment, blah, blah, blah.
Well, and I think when she like ended up like calling out Esther, he was just like, oh, you are a bad mother. See, now I have something on
I have something over you. I'm not the only bad parent.
And it wasn't great. And I also feel like I was really like getting anxious for the mom, which was good in the way that the writers did their job in the first film because she was so desperately trying to be heard and be listened to, but and then she in the past when she suffered from stillbirth, she's suffered from alcoholism. And
they really push her to the edge. They do a good job of really getting her.
And she's still like she's
point.
Like, I don't want to, like, she almost drinks, she almost goes back to alcohol, but she doesn't because she has her kids and she's like putting her kids first. And I'm like, I can't go down this rabbit hole because it will hurt my family. But Esther manipulates the whole family into thinking, well, not the whole family, the kids know, but the dad and the mother-in-law into thinking that the mom is drinking again. She's so belittled and it's just so hard. So at the end, when the dad dies by Esther, it's not like a sad thing. It's almost satisfactory. Better writing overall because as an audience you can feel and really root for the main character. Whereas in the prequel, the first kill, I didn't feel like there was anything to really root for. Everyone was bad.
Yes, and I mean, to be honest, like, yeah, like, the original Orphan is probably, like, 4 or 5, but the Orphan First Kill is genuinely bad. Like, it's a 1 or 2. Like, it's a really not well made, the writing's pretty lame, but I still found, so there's an asterisk on it, because I found enjoyment and amusement from it, because it was so bad that it was good in a way. But,
well, I mean, there are movies like that. There's like, oh my God, this is a really bad movie, but in the best way ever. And I think like those movies are enjoyable. Maybe if there wasn't the original that I had seen, I would find it more funny. And maybe I would be able to be like, oh, this is a slapstick. This is so bad that it's great to watch.
There's a scene in Orphan First Kill where Esther steals the car and is driving.
Oh my God, that's another thing. Oh my God, yes, talk about that.
She steals the car from her mom and she's driving and she pulls out her lipstick, bright red lipstick, puts it on, pulls out a cigarette, starts smoking. And there's just like a scene where she like puts on music and is just driving. Like,
well, she's just ready to behave like her age. But then it's like how she doesn't adjust the seat. She's like, how she's supposed to get in that. Driving. And then also like when she gets pulled over, she's like, was I driving too fast? It's like, you must be Esther. And it's like, oh man, I'm in trouble. And I don't know. I just kind of felt like a lot of things were pointless in a lot of ways. Like,
but that's like that kind of element where it's like, this is so stupid and silly. Like, I honestly wish they had done that for the whole movie because the first half of the movie is a slog. It's just stupid, bad, like murder scenes, and it's just really bland. But once it goes into that area of, it feels maybe the filmmakers knew, they're just like, let's just go full throttle with like the stupidity, like, and let's just have fun with it. Because I feel like there are times when a sequel or a movie will just do that when it's just like trying to be, why not, go over the top.
I wonder, like, you're kind of making me want to rewatch this movie knowing that it's bad to see if I'll enjoy it more.
Yeah, I think I was, because there was a part where like I was just laughing so hard for like the second half of the movie, and I think you were still kind of like trying to see where it was going. But I was just like, once Julia Stiles broke in and shot the detective like 5 times point blank, I was just like, all right.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was in a mood more to actually be scared, and I was just
well,
like,
that's
what
the
is
thing. I
happening?
sat down kind of with the expectations of like, this is probably going to suck, but it was bad in a way that was good.
That is our opinion, guys.
Yes.
October is all horror films for us, or at least the Saturdays. And if we do extra video, then we'll do it about something non-horror related, maybe. But yeah, let us know what your thoughts
let us
were.
know what you want us to watch.
Yeah.
As usual.
And we'll talk to you guys soon.
Yep. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.